Right. Great. One more. All right. So we'll establish two seated positions to start. Our first one will be a cross-legged. And just what I think we'll journey through today, Journey Tuesdays, is just establishing some finer points to the pelvis and the pelvic floor, since it's been brought up. So what I was mentioning as we're just kind of, we're filing in, is the pelvic floor is part of our breath. It's a diaphragm, right? So one, there's multiple diaphragms. So if I just use the word diaphragm, I will generally assume that we're all discussing and feeling the main breathing diaphragm. But maybe you'd like to know there's some other diaphragms, right? Here's a diaphragm in the foot. Here's a diaphragm. My knee, pelvic floor, diaphragm. Solar plexus, diaphragm. Beneath the jaw, diaphragm. Under the brain, around the brain, diaphragm. Right? And so diaphragm is this breathing dome. It breathes. I can perceive it's a breathing dome when it is, in fact, able to receive and perceive breath. So sensitive, right? So in our seated position, if I sit with my hips a little bit elevated, that actually helps my legs relax down. Now, when my legs are relaxed down, already there's less work or effort, or let's just say noise, activity around the pelvic floor. Just by being able to relax my thighs, my legs down, I'm allowing myself a kinetically quieter environment in which to attune to my breath in my pelvis. Now, the pelvis may not be the easiest place to begin feeling, so let's begin in the solar plexus, the diaphragm that most of us are familiar with. And one, I'll just start to soften the belly. Now, as I soften the belly and as I inhale, my diaphragm moves down. I'm just playing around right now, but I just want to share this play because it's kind of doing a number on my kinetic visual system here. I'm just starting my hands on my solar plexus. And as I'm inhaling, I'm moving my hands gently downward. And I'm almost feeling or playing as if it's like when you draw back a syringe, you create that negative pressure system. That's what allows those lungs to expand, to grow. Now, if my abdomen is really hugging on tight, if maybe my abdomen isn't yet relaxing, I may not feel those organs and that excursion and that gentle downward pressure. But we'll keep playing, just a few more breaths. I'm just using my hands to just help me visualize and feel. So as I inhale, I'm moving my hands from my solar plexus to about my navel. Now, as my breath reaches my pelvis in its unobstructed and resilient state there will be some automatic, almost like communication. You may feel a little pelvic floor communication with the breath. You may feel a little bit of muscle activity. You might feel a little pulse or a little microspasm or just a little bit of activity. I'm not overlaying activity. I'm just letting my breath meet my pelvic floor, and I'm simply listening to any activity that might occur at the pelvic floor. Now let's adjust our legs a little bit. So we'll move to the ground, so off of any surface. And we'll separate our legs widely in straddle. If I go super wide, I may feel like my pelvic floor area and my groin are like, yikes, holding on. So I'll take a moderate straddle. I can feel the slightest amount of stretch, but that stretch doesn't preclude me from feeling my breath right against the ground. So use your hands either with your abdomen or place them on the ground. Either way is great. So right now, I'm just feeling the breath reach the pelvic floor as best as I'm able, and feeling for a softening. So it's a little bit like filling a balloon with water. There's that bottom contour, and there's that little bit of breath stretch. Very gentle. I'm not even bearing down. In fact, I'm just, with my awareness, I'm just guiding myself to feel breath plus pelvic floor. Now, bring the hands in front of your legs. Okay. In terms of stretch, not a lot of stretch. So this isn't an intense moment, but I just want to get my hands to a place where I can continue feeling my breath in my back and in my pelvis. And what I'm doing here is I'm just using blocks to keep it really mild. You don't have to use blocks, but I'm just propping up so I have a little bit of just mildness. Okay? So there's a little bit of a caveat with this work. A lot of the things that we do in Forrest yoga tend to relax these diaphragms, especially the throat diaphragm and the pelvic floor diaphragm. So a little historical background. It was Anna's observation that as yoga was being introduced to the West some decades ago, that the use of bandhas, sometimes called locks, like what we're talking about, the power lift, the bracing, the closures, in combination with our cultural kind of habits, our cultural postural habits, she thought it was just too much binding and sought to give us an experience where those bindings could unbind. So there's a lot of cues for relaxing the neck, and there's a lot of cues for bringing our breath into our pelvis. That said, there's a lot of strong moves that we do with the legs. Okay? These big engines, these big superficial engines of muscle can behave quite differently than these deep, deep breathing internal muscles. And so we're going to feel for creating that distinction. Now, here, we'll work a round of Uddiyana. Now, when we work Uddiyana, there is an engagement. If you're currently working with a pelvic floor therapist, if you are currently working with in any of these pelvic floor therapies where you're addressing hip pain and back pain, genital concerns, these may be counterproductive to what you're doing in your therapy. So just know that pelvic floor therapy exists, and you know if you're in it or not, and know that these moves might be counterproductive. Okay. And as one more sidebar, informational sidebar, if you have chronic hip pain, you might consider checking out what a pelvic floor therapist could offer you. It's just not a lot of people may know about it, but it can be immensely helpful in some of these chronic pain situations. All right. We're working a round of Uddiyana. So one, I inhale, feeling that breath excursion in and into the pelvic floor. Now let's exhale moderately. When we get empty, remain empty, lower the chin. I lower the chin so I don't have to induce a lock, a bandha. And now I draw the belly back, but I'm going to induce and intentionally draw through the pelvic floor. So there's a little bit of activity through the genitals, the perineum, and yes, the anus. And as you kind of collect, you're drawing together and up through the core of your pelvis. And you may actually find that in the straddle, it may be challenging to grab or collect. I like the word collect better. Collect and hold collected all of this material, this muscular material at the base. And then release all of that pelvic floor collection. And deeply breathe. Okay. Now, if you've been doing Forrest yoga for a while, you may have grown accustomed to relaxing all of these bandha areas, pelvic floor, throat. And just keep this in mind. We may have created an alternate habit. We may have created an alternate habit of a pelvic floor that isn't able to collect anymore. Flaccidity, right? So we just want to have that broad spectrum range of capacities. So let's do one more round like so. So inhale, my breath reaches the pelvic floor, almost like water filling a balloon. And we'll moderately exhale, not explosively, not softly, but moderately. Okay? Now remain empty and collect and gather from the left side, from the right side, from the front side of the pelvis, from the tailbone anus side. Collect, and start to draw up right through the center, pelvic floor, center of pelvis. And then release that collection. So I'm going to walk up so I can point. Walk yourself up so you can see where I'm pointing. Did you know? So I think my observation has been that many people will begin this Uddiyana right around here. Yet, it can occur or begin here. Yeah? You feel that? Begin there. I'm pointing right at the bottom of my pelvis, right? Encircling anus, perineum, and genital, right? Let's do one more. Feel for, I wish I had a model. I'll use my hand model. If you're familiar with those toroidal, is that what you call them? Toroidal, right? It's almost like a funnel from the bottom through the core of my body. So I'm feeling from the ground through my pelvic floor, broad to narrow, narrow through core. This is my toroidal shape here. I'm trying to create it with my hand. So let's feel for that. One last round. Place hands in front of thighs. Inhaling with your breath reaching the pelvic floor as best as you can sense, like water into the bottom contour of a balloon. Moderate exhale. You can exhale out the mouth. And when you exhale moderately, do you already feel some gathering, some properties in the pelvic floor already? There's some muscular contractions. That's good. That's right. Now remain empty and we'll further gather. So here's that other part of the spectrum. Now I'm gathering. I'm gathering from the left and the right sides of my pelvis. I'm gathering from the front side. I'm gathering from the back side, the tail, the anus side, gathering up almost conically, toroidally, like a funnel. I'm gathering together and in through the center of my pelvis into a fine strand of gathering inward and upward. And then relax. Okay. Use your hands, help your legs together. Okay. Listen up for a seated spinal twist. Okay, I've got my left leg on the ground, and I shall bend my right knee. You can put the right foot, either next to your shin or next to your thigh. And I want you to try them both out, even if you know you can put it one place, because I want you to feel, when I have my foot next to my shin, my breath in my genitals and pelvic floor feels one way. And when I cross my foot over, there's this additional stretch through my butt and around my sacrum. And when I breathe into my sacrum and my genitals and my pelvis, it feels another way. Can you feel that difference? Okay. So you have those two pieces of information. You decide how you want to experience breath in your pelvis. Because I want us to reach the pelvic floor in these twists. Okay? I'm going to go with foot by shin. Okay? And I'm going to keep a really moderate amount of twist. So I'm hooking my left elbow crook around my right shin and knee. Okay? Right hand to ground. Feet active. Oh, this is a nice little detail. I hope you're along for the journey. We're gonna travel through detail land today. So take a breath, feeling your pelvic floor with active feet. And then let the feet go. Let the feet go completely soft against the ground, and feel this next breath in and with your pelvic floor, your pelvis. Okay, and one more time, active feet plus breath. Did you feel more muscular activity when you got your feet active, more muscular activity around the sacrum? Isn't that wild? So now with more muscular activity, can you still feel the breath in the pelvis? So you may need to soften your feet to gain some more sensitivity. So there's a little more challenge to feeling breath in pelvis with active feet. Okay. Now, with the next several exhales, we'll begin to move into our twist, just very gently. So as I add in these stretches, these compressions, these twists, start adding in all of these motor movements. It adds more activity, and so remaining sensitive through activity, that may be the challenge for today. So you'll be in charge of moderating for yourself what we call in the sound world that signal to noise ratio. And release. We'll keep the right over left cross. Let's move into shoelace. Now, if shoelace is a snug, seated situation for you, like oh my gosh, this is so snug, I don't know if I can remain seated. That's why I love a little bit of a blanket or a wedge. Sometimes that little bit of just that teeny little allows me to relax enough. I'm going to Stick them in the back of my butt. There it is. Now I don't have to hold myself up. I've reduced the amount of activity or noise. And it's much easier for me to feel my breath in my sacrum and my pelvis. It's just a teeny little wedge. It's like what you stick under those airplane wheels when they're in the runway, going to the runway. Okay. Bring left elbow in front of left shoulder. Inhale into your back, your left lat. Lat's a big old swath of your side. Exhale, shoulder down, shoulder blade down, and reach that elbow forward. Now, as you reach, just keep noticing what you're doing in the hips and the legs. There may be some inadvertent, little grabbing motions. That's okay. Just notice them if you can. Inhale. You're spreading breath into the armpits, into the shoulder blade. And again, exhaling the shoulder down, the blade down. Reach the elbow forward. Have your right hand grab the meat of your upper left arm. I'm grabbing the bicep. Inhaling, feel breath descend into the pelvic floor as best as you can. And now exhale. Start to use your low belly muscles. Glide the shoulder down. Now use this right hand, gently draw the arm forward. Now when I start to employ my low belly muscles into my exhalation, okay, palm to elbow, deep inhale, there's a little bit of gathering. So as I exhale, low belly muscles, I feel that pelvic floor subtly gathering. It's involved in my breathing. There's reflexes there for my breathing. And let's release. Okay? So again, it's a spectrum. Right? Our pelvic floor, just like our emotional palate, just like our energetic palate, we want to have access to a broad range of expressions. Yeah. Let's switch the cross of our legs. We start with that seated spinal twist. Set the right leg against the ground and try out both positions. Put the left foot beside the shin and connect to breath. Just feel what breath is like in pelvic floor there. And then place the foot beside the thigh. Feel what breath is like here. And when you have one that you want to go with, we'll go with a really simple, I'm just going to hug or hook my right arm around the left thigh. Left hand to ground. So the two hips and the two sides of your back may feel very different. Now, if you start to reach into some of those stretchy hip territories where the hip feels a little tight, just be very studious? Are you adding an overlay of clench to contend with the stretch or the ache? Is it possible to remain with the breath and feel the breath? Communicating through the pelvic floor. And release, inhaling down to the pelvis as you unwind. Aha, I got you on that one. Opening up the legs a little bit. Shoelace. And again, if there's some ache around this connective tissue, around this hip socket, sometimes a little wedge helps. Bring right elbow up. Unlocking shoulder. Inhaling, spreading breath into the right side. Someone may have just asked, but can I breathe from my pelvis into my shoulder? Absolutely. Exhaling, draw that right shoulder down. And just feel what happens around the genitals as you reach the elbow forward. You may find there's a little bit of little muscle contractions. Place your left hand on your biceps. You're grabbing the meat of your thigh. Feet active. Inhale into pelvis. Letting that spread up under that shoulder blade. Exhale the shoulder down, the blade down. And now gently draw that arm forward. Left palm to inner elbow. Now feel as we involve the low belly muscles and exhale. So let's breathe into the pelvis, belly, sacrum. And now as you exhale, invoke those low belly muscles. Use them to exhale. And you feel there's that little mild, probably a little mild engagement. That's right. We're not trying to stop all muscle movement. Once more. And release. Let's unwind the legs. We will work frog with our feet on the wall. I'll recommend feet on wall for the sensitivity that it hopefully provides. Again, I'm letting the wall do my work for me. It's not lazy, it's not cheating, but it's reducing the overlays, the noise, the activity, the neurological stimuli work so that I can feel more carefully into pelvis and this membrane-like diaphragm bottom pelvic floor. So here I am in frog. Let's leave the head down on the ground. You could put your hands behind your head or you can put your hands on your belly. Now, let's take two, just testing the waters breaths. 1, feet really relaxed. Breathe into pelvic floor. Relaxed feet. Now, with your feet relaxed, your belly softening, you may have felt how your spine actually lifts and lowers. Now try active feet plus breathing into pelvis. Different sensitivity. Now try active feet, deep breath, and invoke the low belly muscles with the exhalation. So feet are active. Inhaling, my abdomen softens. Breath descends into pelvic floor and genitals. And now I exhale, I use those low belly muscles. I draw them. So I'm feeling for drawing from that place. It's like pubic bone and even right behind the pubic bone. And we're going to add that one more move, which is what we usually do in abdominals, which is drawing the belly in. And note how it takes you further along in that spectrum of engagement. Notice how or if more muscles chime in, more activity occurs. So inhaling, soft belly. A little bearing down is all right. And then exhaling with the low belly muscles from that pubic bone area. I'll permit myself to empty out. And then I'll draw the belly down, which to me has that toroidal, I'm pulling as if from the pelvic floor through the center of the pelvis, gathering the abdomen in. And we'll take several breaths just like so. And if at this point you have any questions, don't hesitate to just sound on and let me know what they are at this point. I can't promise answers, but we'll do one more like so. Because if we can feel that these motions and these activities occur on a spectrum of lots and lots of engagement, very little engagement, I think we're doing a really great thing. Now, here's our encore, our encore abdominal move. We will raise the head and the shoulders up just as we often do. So feet are on the wall, active. Inhale, head and shoulders off the ground. Feel how there's an entirely different activity in the pelvic floor. Exhaling, curls the tailbone. Now draw the belly in and down and up. Inhaling, keep the head and the shoulder blades up. I'll talk through just one more. Exhaling, low belly muscles. Feel that the pelvic floor does something. Or does it? And pull the low belly in. So you are gathering from the left, from the right, from the front, from the back, gathering and drawing in, going in attentionally through the center of your pelvis, from the floor and moving up toward the head. Let's do about 3 more on our own. So you feel this is much more dynamic. This is moving us into that spectrum of high engagement. The engagement does not overlay or blot out feeling breath in pelvis. How it's not uncommon that one's pelvis, just through life and activities, can adopt a bit of a twist, right? So those torsions and those twists and those angles, and right, we might be feeling a kind of an unevenness. Now, heel toe your feet together on the wall. Keep them on the wall, heel toe them together. Okay. Then, turn onto a side and scoot your butt right up to the wall. We're setting up bridge on a wall. If you need to see what this is, then just press yourself up, I'll show you. So I've just scooted my butt right up to the wall. My feet are up the wall. And when I press, because I've got long legs, I've got to walk my feet up another few inches. Now this is it. You can use your hands for support. It's like a shoulder stand, but our feet are on the wall. I'll exit just so I can see you if I can see you. And if there's any question, let me know. Okay. If you can't get to a wall to do bridge on a wall, you can work bridge. It'll feel a little different, or shoulder stand. It'll feel different, but we can still work with that. Good. All right. And even Brett, I'm not sure if that's like an ottoman or a box in the back. If you put your feet up on a surface and bridged up, even that would work. I don't know if that's something you want to do or not do with your shoulder, your neck. There you go. So if you are in this vertical position with your butt over your shoulders, connect to your breath. Pelvic floor, very different feeling in this bridge at wall. If you're working bridge on the ground, this is a different scenario. It's just going to have more gluteal butt engagement. Okay. But why I bring up this bridge on the wall is, for many, this will help us feel the pelvic floor very, very relaxed. begin our descent. And then let's turn onto a side that we may set up for dolphin. If you have the notion that it's challenging to feel one's breath in pelvis, that challenge may be exacerbated when we press up into something like dolphin. If we have that feeling of our hips being a little snug, our legs feel stretched in dolphin, you may try. I have these wedge things, but you might try keeping the heels like on a surface, blocks against a wall. I've got these little triangles I stick under my heels. And by keeping the heels elevated, your hips, your back will be in a different shape. So you don't have to do this. I'm just kind of putting a little asterisk, there's a little footnote for whenever you're playing around and goofing off. So I'm going to set up dolphin, elbows under shoulders, knees under hips. On our next exhale, let us press the knees off the ground. So I'm going to speak to the pelvis, and I just want you to know that I in our safe environment of our own practice space, this is something for you to explore if it causes you to feel uncomfortable or whatever, that's okay. But I think it's worth noting our psychology around this. So I do want to say it. Okay. So in dolphin, right, I want you to feel for unclenching and relaxing right between your glutes, your butt cheeks. And again, if there's a lot of chronic hip pain, this may be something you want to investigate very gradually. Maybe you have a somatic, a body-based therapist that you can work with. Okay? So if there's been some particularly colorful scenario, this might be something you bring to a professional. And this isn't always the easiest thing to want to feel, to want to embark on, but just feel for relaxing between the butt cheeks. So you're letting the anus area become soft, relaxed, and that may actually soften through the back. Okay. the anus, the pelvis, the pelvic floor may not be an area that we consider being clenched or contracted or in any chronic state at all. But I think it's so worth exploring because it's one of those where it really does happen. Statistically, it happens quite a bit. And to know if it happens in our body, I think is super valuable because then we can get the right help if we need it. We can embark more carefully with greater acuity and finesse and fidelity through the hips. And we're not just trying to bludgeon our hips with, 2 or 3 poses that we know. We can have a much finer approach. All right, let's gently set the knees down. Do y'all have a roll? This would be cool. I'm going to add to this roll a little bit of cushion off on the right side of my my mat. Let me show you 2 things. I'm going to show you how I'm thinking and then what we can do. So, how I'm thinking is this wonderful move, lounge lunge, which I love. But what we'll do is I'm going to pick that right leg up and lie the belly down with my left leg stretched back. Yeah? So why aren't I straightening both legs? Well, if you get into this position, you'll feel that this roll is angled a little differently into that left hip bone. Some of the load is taken off that right side, and that roll pressure is angled more into that left, like the inner scoop of the hip bone. Okay. I'm just going to wriggle a tiny bit until I can feel the edge of the roll is adjacent to my left hip bone. Can you feel that? The left hip bone? Good. I'm going to breathe into that left half of the pelvis. Usually if we angle directly onto the roll pushes on all the internal organs, and that has a great benefit. When I pick or hike one leg up to the side like frog, it angles more into the muscle bone around the pelvis. All right, and I'm going to straighten my right leg back. I'm going to press up for a moment to switch sides. I want to switch the cushion onto the other side of my mat. All right, so now, kind of hiking my left leg up off to the side as I lie on the roll. And if you need me to change angles, just show some motion on the screen. I'll see it and I'll turn. So now I feel that pressure of the roll just angling into that right side of the hip bone. And here I'll breathe. So I'm letting that roll help guide my breath into those, like the whole volume of pelvis. I'll straighten that left leg back. Inhale, hands under chest. And let's exhale, press to your knees. And we're going to do a little bit more setup here. Now I'm grabbing a block. It's getting really serious here with the props. So just see what I've done here. I've put my roll on my block. It's on standby. And we'll set up frog. Frog without any roll first. Okay? Okay. So first things first. No roll just yet. It's on standby. Let's move into frog. Now again, what we'll be going through is a bit of a mindfulness, mind-body, mind-pelvic floor connection. If you're in any of these therapies, this may be counterproductive or this may be really cool. So I just don't know, it comes with a little cautionary tag, that's all. Okay. We're in frog. Got your knees padded. We're here for a little bit. So let's establish breathing into the pelvis, into the pelvic floor. Okay. Now what I will prescribe, what I'll be cueing us to do is to inhale, and then we'll be holding our breath. And as we hold our breath, I'll be talking us through exactly which areas we'll engage, and then we'll exhale. Okay? So first, I want you to mentally divide your pelvis into 4 quadrants. So you have a front and a back. You have a left and a right. Just get a sense of where those quadrants, those lines may be. And as you're breathing into the pelvis, just feel, do I feel my breath in my front left quadrant, in my front right quadrant, my back left, my back right quadrant? So here goes the games. Are you ready for pelvic floor games? Some of you are like, what did I get into? I thought this was a Tuesday morning yoga. Inhaling into pelvis. Take your time expanding the breath gently. Now hold the breath for a moment and contract, engage the front half and the back half. Exhale. Let it all go. Let the front half go, let the back half go. Deep, slow, patient breath. Now, hold the breath for a moment. Engage the right half pelvic floor. Engage the left half pelvic floor. Exhaling, let both halves go. Slow, patient breath. Now, the very top of your inhalation, pause and engage the front right quadrant. The back right quadrant. The back left quadrant. The front left quadrant. Exhaling, let it all go. Inhale. Now hold the breath. Engage the front left quadrant, the front right, the back left quadrant, the back right. Exhaling, release the front left quadrant. Release the front right quadrant. Release the back left. Release the back right. We'll do just a couple more. Deep breath. Slow and patient. We're reaching the pelvic floor with each and every breath. Now pause, holding the breath, engage the front left quadrant, the back right quadrant, the back left quadrant, the front right quadrant. Exhaling, release the front right, release the front left, release the back left, release the back right. Now, press to your hands. You may have to scooch those legs a little bit in. Remember that block and that roll? Remember those? That old chestnut? Bring that block and roll under your belly. Now, when we lie the belly on the roll, the stretch will likely diminish on the groin and the pelvic floor and the legs. Okay. I'm using my forearms. My belly's on the roll. We'll just be here just a couple moments more. And it's as if my leg bones, I'm letting them drip, almost like melting icicles, away from my pelvis. So I'm feeling for releasing any tension around the left hip socket and the right hip socket. All right, that's plenty. Use your hands, press up a little bit, push that roll out of the way, and I'm going to exit by crawling forward. So I'm kind of army crawling here. Go so gentle. Go so gently. So almost kind of just wiggle my pelvis left and right to kind of get my legs behind me. press to your hands and knees. And then very carefully press to your feet. Walk it off. How are we doing? Yeah, good. 2 thumbs up. We'll take 2 thumbs up. All right, let's stand at the top of the mat. We'll just move very cautiously, gracefully. My sense is some things have shifted a little bit. Our perception may have shifted through our legs and our feet, our pelvis. Inhale, reach arms overhead. Wow, what a belly pelvic breath. Exhaling, fold forward. And you may need to bend your knees until you're more acquainted with how the sacrum is shifting and bending and such. Inhale, step the left foot back. Let's keep the knee up, the heel up, and let's have the hands remain down. Inhale into the pelvis. Exhaling, reach the left heel back. So here's where these superficial, big engines of muscle come on. You feel how they kind of turn on, but we can still have that breath sensitivity through our pelvis. We haven't restricted our pelvic floor from breathing, from that breath movement. Let's feel for that. Because here we are adding effort, but the effort does not preclude our pelvic floor from being breathed. And gently set the knee down. Pigeon. Walk right foot to the left side of the mat. Is that amount of hand pressure good for you, Susan? W, thank you. So that's cool. We're in a good spot. That's nice. Now in our pigeon, okay, there's many different ways we can work this, and I just want to point them out, the various ways, just so we can have some more granular tool sets. So I can leave my pelvic floor like almost limp. Okay? That is a possibility. Now feel what happens when you enact the low belly muscles in your exhalation. You feel how there is a little bit of automatic, it's reflexive, it's automatic activity around the anus and the genitals. That's not bad. That's what a pelvic floor does. It moves and it behaves with our breath. And I would just want to point out, let's give it a couple more breaths. As you work with those low belly muscles, as the pelvic floor has that kind of activation, it kind of comes to life, it's doing something. Do you relax and feel the breath in the bottom of the balloon? Right? So there's action and there's release of action. So can you feel those distinct qualities in the pelvic floor? There's that softening on the inhale. And there's that slight automatic motion that comes when I use my low belly muscles, drawing the belly in and back. Inhale, let's walk the hands under the shoulders. And we'll exhale, pressing back. You can press to your hands and knees, or you can press to downward dog. Lunge. Inhale, left foot forward. Right knee, right heel off ground. Okay. So by my measure, this is a pretty active pose. There's a lot of activity. But that activity does not obscure my sensitivity for breathing into pelvic floor. Feel that distinction for yourself. We still have all of that sensitivity, breath in pelvic floor, breath in pelvis. And we have all of the activity of those more superficial engines of the legs, the butt, the hams, the quads, the lifters and the movers. So you can feel that you're breathing behind the lifters and the movers. Set the right knee down. Pigeon. Let's walk the left foot to the right side. Lie shin down. Inhale, let's bring hands under shoulders. Exhaling, either slide leg back into hands and knees or press back into downward dog. Pyramid. Inhale, right foot forward. This may be where you want blocks. The simple act of bringing the hands up, to me, has less to do about how deep in the pose or how flexible I am. And it has a little bit more to do with what position do I want my pelvis to be in as I breathe. And so that could, like if you're having hip or back pains or some chronic thing, I may want the back and the pelvis in a very different position than my most flexible position. Gently set left knee down, twisting, lunge. Right hand on right thigh, prop, press, inhale, raise the left arm. Exhaling, hook left elbow over right thigh. So I'm going to point this out here because it's just a little bit of details today. As I was hooking it over, it occurred to me that I bet there's a bunch of us that braced our abdomen as we moved into the twist. And we might not even know it, so we're going to do a redo, and you can check. So I have my right hand on my thigh. Inhale, unwind. Reach the left arm up. And what I meant by brace is, like bracing, like stiffening, right? So let's try that again and feel the core You feel how it's totally different in the pelvis? Like in that deep, deep hip rotator in the sacral area. When we move in with a soft belly, there's a different motion here. And I suspect there's a lot of hip, like grunginess, and we just kind of brace around it like, just get through it, brace and go. So twisting extended lunge. Left hand can move down to ground or block. If you have any shoulder concerns, just keep the palm facing up like you're serving tea. Bring the right arm overhead. And if you really feel it, you may press your back knee off the ground. let's unwind smoothly, carefully. Set the hands down, and we'll exhale, stepping right foot back. Lower, belly to earth. Inhale, belly into the ground. Chest elevates. Minimal use of hands. Exhaling, lower down. Downward dog. You can press to your knees or you can press to downward dog. Inhaling, step left foot forward, pyramid. We'll do those 3 poses and we'll wrap it up. So pyramid, straight-legged, fold. Blocks are wonderful. If you're a little shy about using the blocks, do it like just a test. Put the blocks really high and feel your breath descend into the back and the pelvis and the groin. And then set them a little lower and take another test breath. And inhaling, gently set the right knee down. Now, heads up, we're moving into a twisting lunge, and we're just going to take note of any bracing. Now let's find out if we can move, kind of maintaining that softness. So go as slowly as you need to. So as I'm exhaling, I'm feeling softness, softness. Softness, softness. Ah, there I am. Twisting lunge. I think that will play into how you experience your breath in your abdomen and in your pelvis here, in this pose. All right, one more move. Twisting, extended lunge. So with my right armpit against my thigh, right hand to ground. Left arm overhead. Back knee up is optional. And inhale, unwind. Set the hands down. And once more, we'll exhale. We'll step back, lowering belly to earth. Minimal hand usage in Cobra. Inhale the belly into the earth. Let the chest elevate. And let the hands just chime in like 5 or 10%. Exhaling, lower down and press your hips back. Just pressing back to kneeling. And then turn over. Let's have a seat, or a rest rather, Shavasana. So we can find out what we did. Sometimes when we gift our attention and our care to somewhere, to our body, it can start to almost emit a sense of movement, reorganization. And wouldn't that be so wonderful? To reorganize with an even greater degree of care. When you're ready, turn to a side. And press to seated, whatever seated position you enjoy. Namaste.